Yes and no. Angles by The Strokes, their fourth album, does and does not hold up in certain unique, particular ways. Thank you, Internet viewer. If you are joining the first time, this is The Rock Show with Connor Farrell, where I, Connor Farrell, a Gen Z rocker, let you, in case you're a longtime rocker just looking to see what Gen Z thinks about rock music, or you are a Gen Zer trying to figure out what kind of rock music to listen to and where to start and what's some good records and whatnot. I'm here to help you with that on your journey and hopefully have some fun along the way. Yeah, man, yeah. If you're talking about Angles by The Strokes, you know, it's an interesting record. It's a fun record if you're already kind of a fan of The Strokes, or unless you really like Tame Impala. Like if you like stuff that's more indie alternative, you're going to get good mileage out of this record. You're going to dig it. If you like hard rockin', like more aggressive, more like real intense type of stuff. And when I mean intense, I don't mean like it's like screaming vocals and blast beats and extremely loud guitars. I just mean like if you like things that are really like, emotionally like they're serious. They bring you to a place where like some people might not be in the mood for that, right? They might not be ready for that. It's kind of more demanding, really. Like, oh my god, um, this record feels lighter. It's an easier listen than their first three records, and I think to me it sounds like a much better version of what their latest record, The New Abnormal, could have been. It feels like it's in the vein of what The New Abnormal was going for, but just overall a much better record than The New Abnormal. And I'm not here to really dog on that record, but I think just it does give you some perspective and some context for what you're going in with this record. If you're expecting it to sound like First Impressions of Earth, which is their third record, right? Or if you're thinking it's going to sound like Is This It? Or Room on Fire, you're in for trouble. It's a good record. It's much more sweet than the first three, but it's a little bittersweet because it really does, once again, kind of, as you see with a lot of these bands from the early 2000s, it does kind of signal a shift away from a hard rocking sound and more towards kind of the death of that version of the band that they started out as. And, it's a metamorphosis into something new and something different. But, for someone like me who wants more rock music and more rock bands, it's bittersweet. You go back and look through the discography and you really see these points where these bands that made some of the most iconic, impactful rock records of the last 20 years, you see they shift into, a slower, more reserved, less intense, and personally not as interesting to me version of the band. This by no means is their worst album. I think it's The New Abnormal, and by no means is it even particularly a bad record. Like even right now, I'm listening to the record, Call Me Back. It just hit the middle, and that's so good. It just gets you. There's all these little things in the record that are just like little fun surprises, but they almost make you nostalgic for the band you're not getting. That's really how I feel when I hear this. But songs like Machu Picchu, Under Cover of Darkness, Taken for a Fool, those songs, they really, I wouldn't say they make up for the fact that it seems, potentially one of your favorite bands has died, or at least the incarnation that was your favorite, that made it into that realm of quality and care. I know this is not the most exciting commentary, but I mean, neither is this album. That's the thing. This is not a particularly exciting album. It's not particularly, what's the word? Remarkable. It's not really remarkable. It's not earth-shattering. It's not transformative. And I mean, the fact that there were so many problems during the production, in case you don't know, when they're making this record, you know, they did pretty much 3 records like back to back. And then there's a big 5 year gap for this record. And so they took like a giant hiatus after, First Impressions of Earth. And then they had trouble. I think Albert Hammond, started having some drug problems. Julian Casablancas in the band seemed to have some strife. After, maybe just writing the songs, they were all good. But, there's lots of interviews where the band was like, oh, Julian wasn't there when we were recording. And according to Julian, the singer, that's just, we weren't all in the same room when we were doing the final takes. We wrote all the songs together in a room, and we did that for hours and hours. So, but yeah, this feels like the beginning of, even Gratisfaction. I'm listening to it right now, and it's just like, it's got parts and pieces of an idea for a song that could be fun, but it just never gets to that realm where it's hitting on all cylinders. It just never does. Let me listen to Metabolism. Let's see. Oh, this one does. This one's fun, but it still feels like, for being one of the only like notable songs on the record, it still feels like, probably one of the weaker songs that could have been on First Impressions of Earth. Right? So one of the best songs on your 4th record almost seems like the least remarkable song in your 3rd record. It's like, it's not a good sign. I would say this record is not horribly inconsistent, but it's just, it really feels like they were just trying things and getting things to work. It's the definition of something being sufficient. Like, Life is Simple in the Moonlight, though. This song hits. See, this record's good because you want to listen to it and find those ones that are great. And, when I said, does it hold up? The songs that do really hold up. But not all of them do. And then second, when you're talking about Strokes, the Strokes, this record's not really up to that standard. It doesn't hold up to the Strokes, right? Like, I'm certain if you kind of think about it, like, if this record could have just not existed, and I know it's, yeah, it's, they took out, so I'm listening to Life is Simple in the Moonlight, and like, this would have been like, to me, maybe something more intense like Eyes of the World if it was on the record prior, 5 years before this one came out. But instead, like, they have these synths in the background, and it feels like they almost tone things down. You know what it feels like? So Julian Casablancas, oh, the post-chorus part is really good. So right here, that's like super nice and cool. It just feels like this record, they're trying to smash together the vibe of Julian Casablancas' solo album, Phases, I forget what it's called. But that record's really good, but it's really different from the Strokes, and it makes it's less of a rock record and more of just a good kind of like pop rock record. That might seem a little bit of a pointless distinction, but it's much more of a pop record, and it's not trying to rock, and you don't hold it to that same bar because it doesn't rock as hard. It's good and it's pleasant. This record's good and it's pleasant. Any record that I'm really talking about in these early podcasts, it's from my favorite bands, and it's the best records they have. So, like, take all this with a grain of salt. Like, I'm saying this album is like a 6.8 out of 10, right? Yeah, but it's just, I don't know. It's a more embarrassing effort by one of the greatest rock bands of all time. I mean, by no means is this the most embarrassing, is it genuinely embarrassing? No, it's just aggressively fine. This record's fine. That's why it's like a 6.5, 6.8, or whatever I said. It's it's not a great record. It's definitely not a great record. It's fine. They're an incredible band, so fine is disappointing from them. That's all. Especially when you see like what they do, and you see what like even Life is Simple in the Moon Knight, like that post chorus thing. I almost feel like they used that on the Voids later, or Julian took that. Like, here we go. Okay, I thought they were about to play it. I'm listening to the album right now on my headphones, by the way, and it's just, yeah, this is, I'm just listening to it, and here we go. No, um, this is when they start to feel like they have an idea of what the Strokes is, like a version that's like a stereotype, and they're just trying to like do that stereotype. And that's when I think a band kind of like disappoints me, when they have a version of what they sound like that's a stereotype. Um, you know, and for some bands, I guess that can be like, useful. But even if you look at the Strokes, like the first three records still are really, 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 really good. And why is, and that means to say is First Impressions of Earth isn't a copy paste with different notes and different chords of either of the first two records. And the second record and the first record are really similar, but the second record is not a copy paste of the first record. It hits way harder. And and so that's where kind of like, it feels like when you get to this record, they're just like brute forcing the fact that they're really good musicians and good writers, in spite of the fact that this record is like, it's like this record is like, kill me, I don't want to exist. And they're making it exist. Oh boy, are they making it exist? Yeah, no, it's so funny because you're sitting here, you're like, what is this record? Like, Machu Picchu is pretty fun. When I was taking lessons at School of Rock in San Diego, in Point Loma, San Diego, I had Robert. Robert has a band called Night Lapse. He had a Strokes cover band. Started out and then turned into Night Lapse, which is his kind of originals band in that vein of some of the later Stroke stuff. More on the pop side of power pop or pop punk or pop rock. And it's just, I learned Machu Picchu as one of the first songs I, kind of did when I took singing lessons for maybe 3 months or 4 months before I went off and started my band. And so I've got fond memories of Machu Picchu, but that's probably when I first tried to listen to this record. And you're just like, this is underwhelming, especially for the name The Strokes, and all the weight that holds. And so it's like, it's fine. It's one of those records. It's like the third and fourth Arctic Monkeys record. Like, if you really like this band, not just because the prior records are undeniably good, but because now you've become a fan of just them as people and them working together, and you just get excited to see what they kind of like do, then you're going to have fun with this record. If you're a diehard Strokes fan, you're going to have fun. If you're just like a boomer, or like you're an older guy, or you're an older gal, or whatever, you're an older rock fan, and you're like looking at the Strokes as a band to figure out, like, do I like them? Don't look at this record. This record's not, it's not one of those records that's, like, going to convert you. This is a record that, you already liking the Strokes will make you enjoy this record. So you'll have fun. You'll really like this record, especially because it'll give you a way to mix up listening to the Strokes by not listening to the other three records before this. You'll be able to throw this in rotation, and so it'll make the other records feel new because you'll have some time away from them, and this will feel new and different. But by no means are you going to be like, wow, this is the best Strokes album. Now, the cover art is, I think, more fun, more iconic. Maybe not more iconic, but I think just overall like a better cover than First Impressions of Earth, which has just like I guess like a razor blade or something. I don't even know. It's just it's colors. Well, then Undercover of Darkness. I'll take this. Undercover of Darkness is like rightly one of their hits. It's amazing. It's good. It's fun. It's like super tight, super hooky. Like all these little guitar lines. Those are good, but not good enough to save the record. That's the thing. One good part isn't enough to save a song, and two good, incredible, perfect songs is not enough to save a record. Now, can they make a band name? Yeah. A band can have a first record that's okay, but have two really good songs, and then you skip it. That's like most of like, for me, that's how I feel about a lot of like classic rock. A lot of classic rock bands will do two or three or four really good songs in a single, and then a bunch of filler for the rest of the record. Almost to the point where you're like, couldn't you have come up with like more interesting filler? Um, and I guess for that, you would just, I kind of have like an internally, I have a list of like creative things like I can do on guitar. Or just when you come up with vocals and different things, just tap a rhythm. Or do counting in numbers. This is a Frank Zappa trick, right? It's like 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 1 1. Like, and that may have sounded like a homeless person rambling to you, but if you really take a second, you go like, and do different groupings of like numbers, right? Like 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3 1 2 3 4 5 1 2 3. That's still there is 8 beats or whatever. That's like 8 kind of hits. That's still a grouping of 4, but just the fact that you're splitting it into a phrase of 5 and then 3, and you could do it like 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. Shoot, 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 3. Or you do 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3 1 2 1 2 3. Like you, so you're like, well, that's in 5/4 time, but really you can take like rhythms and stuff like that and just kind of like da 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 da. That's ideation. So when it comes to like all art, my thesis is, my working thesis is when it comes to art, my working thesis is you've got creativity, you've got two parts. You create things, and the second part is you're a critic. You're a creative and a critic at the same time. You come up with lots of ideas, and you're very agnostic. And then you become a strong critic. Now, you don't want to be too harsh right off the bat. You want to hear everything first. That's why it's important not to be critic when you're creating. But at a separate point, you have to put the critic hat on and go, bad, bad, great, good, fine, bad, bad. You go, bad, but if we did something with it, we could make it incredible. So let's just save it. And you really see lots of other things. You're like, what if I tweaked that? What if I tweaked that? Like, what if I took the chords from Stairway to Heaven, but I like completely changed like the order, and then I threw in other things, and I threw it in a different key. And then you just start moving pieces around in your brain, right? Or just on a guitar or on a piano or using your voice if you're a singer. And you just kind of like, and you just go until something else emerges. And then you're like, oh, that's a different thing. And then you can try 18,000 different ways of doing the same idea. You can do it with, guitars as a big rock riff like Seven Nation Army. You could do it as like, like there's lots of different ways to do a song. And, that's where you want to be creative and come up with all these different versions. You're like, what would it be if I played on the drums like bad 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 It's that rhythmic element. And then you start with words first, and you can say words, and words imply rhythm. And then very easily from there, you've got a rhythm, and you can turn it. So, like, there's a lot of different approaches. So, for me, I approach things a lot of times. Well, no, this is the thing. When bands phone in records, that's really what we're starting with here. Um, and they've got, like, either one good song or one good part of a song. Like this guitar solo in the middle on Two Kinds of Happiness is like really doing it for me. The rest of the song, not so much. Not so much. And so we're talking about that process of ideation and how do you come up with ideas and how do you vary things. It's really simple. And I think it's very important to realize there's a difference between using tricks to come up with things and using tricks to cover up the fact that you don't have any ideas. So on the latest couple Weezer records, Rivers does a lot of good songwriting, like little tricks that cover up the fact that he didn't come up with anything original. Or anything that feels like he really feels it, like the White Album, like, I don't want the summer to end. Do, 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 do. I really feel like his pain and something there. And that song isn't like, I mean, it has a really epic like guitar solo that's super climactic and triumphant at the end. But the actual like lyrics and the melodies, like they're not revolutionary, but they feel real. And so he doesn't have to do many tricks like having a big guitar solo it goes into. Like another one is Motorhead does this on the song Overkill. And if you have never heard Overkill by Motorhead, go do yourself a favor. Warning, you do have to turn it up loud because the mixing is not the best. But if you turn it up loud, you're going to see the song begins with and then the bass comes at and you hear guitar like it starts and it does this big epic intro and then the song goes and they wrap up, but then the bass starts it again and the drums start it again and they go back in, and then the third time they do it, it ends in the most epic guitar solo when they come back in. And so that's a stop and start. There's a Captain Beefheart song, Clear Spot, does the exact same thing as stop and start. And that's like a trick. That's a songwriting trick, not really a creativity thing. So in the way that like, I could take a song, even if it's a boring song, and then add that to it. The Misfits have a song called Mommy, Can I Go Out and Kill Tonight? And basically it starts out with like kind of a song a little bit. And then he says, Mommy, can I go out and kill tonight? When it's like, there's a pause. And then it goes, da 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 da. And it turns into a much like kind of thrashier, rambunctious punk song. But doing the pause in the middle and then going into a different groove, like that's a songwriting trick. And those can enhance songs that already have something real, something really cool or good there that can really bridge together different ideas, and that can give you a venue. Like in the Motorhead song, they've got a main song, but then they're like, man, I really wish we had a way to like triumphantly come in and do a guitar solo here, but I don't want to just like end the verse and then go straight into the guitar solo. I wish we had like something big. And so the fact that they go down, they bring it down, and then they bring you back, and they're like, oh, this is cool. It's one guitar solo, and the guitar solo is pretty good. But then they slow down again. You're like, okay. But then they come back again. You go, no way. 3 times. I didn't really think they would. And then it's the craziest, like, best, most triumphant guitar solo ever. And you're like, that's the perfect way to build up to that already cool part of the guitar solo. And so you can use tricks sometimes to bridge things together when you don't have as much as you probably would like to. But you need to come up with things first. In this record, I don't think they came up with enough stuff to whittle it down to just the best ideas. And I think it's evidenced by the fact that I'm listening to what? You're So Right. And I think there's only like 1 or 2 parts in that entire song that actually kind of stop me and make me go. So let's wrap it up. Let's wrap it up. Because I can keep talking about ideation and coming up with ideas and tricks versus, and I will. I'll do that in the next episode, the next podcast. But let's really wrap up Angles. I'm pulling up the Wikipedia. So this is a good record to get inspiration, but also to see, like, if you don't kind of like be exacting after the whole like ideation process, if you don't actually be a critic, because here's the thing most people are afraid of doing is coming up with 30 ideas and then chopping them down the first draft and being like, oh, there's only 4 left. And then you go, oh, wait a minute. Only one of these is actually good. And so, usually it's not that strict. Usually it's like you come up with 30 songs and like, because these are songs that you made all the way on. 15 of them are pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. And then if you really want to cut it down to just like the best songs, you're probably going to have like 7, 6, maybe 9 if you really were, kind of weeding stuff out along the way. But then you look at the other stuff and you go, okay, out of the 7 songs I have remaining, can I pull stuff from the other 30 or the other ones in the 30 that we didn't use? Like a good idea, just an idea, and throw it together, right? And that is where you then end up with like really punched up. The 7 are already incredible. Then you really punch them up. You throw in little things. It's much better to have something incredible and just use it once and almost waste it, like just use it to boost up one good song, than to try and stretch it into its whole other song when it doesn't have that much mileage. Queens of Stone Age on their second album have a song called, I think, Tension Head. And it begins with like down, 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 and it goes into the song. And it does the whole song, and then it only played that. That's like my favorite riff by Queens of the Stone Age, and they play it once right there, and then the song continues, and then it does a breakdown, and it plays down, 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 and then it goes back into like big solo again, almost like the Motorhead song. And the thing is, like, as much as I would love that to be another song, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a whole other song that was based around that one riff, and it just wasn't that good. But the riff was so cool, especially for like 10 seconds of just hearing it real quick. You're not hearing it over and over and over and getting sick of it, but just that one time you hear it. I bet they had written songs and were like, no, it'd be really good. This songs are really good. That song didn't really make the cut. That one riff is good. And you take that riff and you sew it into a song that's already a good song, like already definitely go on the album type of song. And so with here, it feels like, what is this, 10 songs? It feels like to me they have 3 songs that are really good, like Machu Picchu, Undercover Darkness, Taken for a Fool. And they should have cannibalized the other songs, the other 7 songs, put parts of them to bump up Machu Picchu, Undercover Darkness, and Taken for a Fool, if they really need it. I mean, they're fine, like they're good enough, but they should have took the other stuff and crammed it all into 2 really good songs. And then they'd only have 5 songs. They'd be like, oh shit, we only have, what is that, like 5 times 3.5? Oh my God, 17.5 minutes. So like we only have half an album. And then that would actually humble you, and you'd have to go back and go and start the phase of creating stuff. You have to write way more, way more, way more. A band that doesn't suffer from this problem is Ghost. If you listen to the latest Ghost record, which I'd recommend over listening to this piece of trash, that was mean. I love the Strokes, but this is bad, guys. This is not. I think they know it too. It's not like horrible. It's aggressively fine. Some of the stuff where it's like Cynthia feels like a bad predecessor to the Voids, or just bad cop out shit. This feels like the shit that Julian would even put on his solo record. He was like, "Ew, that's kind of embarrassing. This just isn't that good of a song," and so it ends up here, and so you're like, "Oh." Anyways, they should have trimmed this down to 2-3 songs. Listen to Machu Picchu, Undercover of Darkness, and Taken for a Fool. But if you really want to listen to later Strokes, because you've listened to the first 3 albums, go listen to Come Down Machine. This is a much better album. And shockingly, it's 2 years later. I almost like to think they sobered up after Angles, where they tried to like add synthesizers and stuff, It didn't really work, and they tried to do like poppier and like a little more like new wave pop type of synth stuff, and it just doesn't. It just falls flat. It's not good. And here's the thing: is that stuff works, and I love like Billy Idol. And like what I mean to say is I love like 80s sounding stuff. And so that's not the problem. The problem is not the format they're going for. It's the fact that they weren't, strict enough with themselves when they were becoming the critic. They weren't strict enough to say, no, this is bad. We actually don't have an album. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if they were all exhausted. They were tired. They just wanted to get something out so they could go back and start touring again. And they're like, we don't have to play these songs live anyways. And 2 or 3 of these are really good, so we'll just play those ones. But yeah, join me on the next video where we break down Come Down Machine, a much better Strokes album. This is the pick-me-up, because then we're going to slam you down with a new Abnormal. God, I got a lot to say about that record. Holy shit, everything that's wrong with music right now, everything that's wrong with bands are like, let's just keep treading water. Let's keep treading water. It's like, fine, go play shows. You're past your prime. You're not really in love with being the Strokes anymore. Cool. Don't make new albums that suck. Just reissue the old ones or throw the B-sides out as something new. Or just literally hire a good young band, right? And get them to do a collab album with you where you guys literally combine and like maybe they ghostwrite the whole album for you and they get their name thrown on it too. That would be less embarrassing than putting out a piece of shit record that is kind of like a disservice to your fans. Like the current Arctic Monkeys album, The Car, that just came out, and the new Abnormal from the Strokes. It's like, if you would have, instead of making those records, if you would have gone and if you would have just hired, I mean, I'd say even Royal Blood, but they've got a lot of their own thing going on. They're good. Just trying to think, just like pick kind of a more up and coming band. Like if you just took like a good kind of up and coming band and you just said, you're going to help them write their record, and they collabed the whole record. Do you know how much smarter of a career move that sounds like to me? Because here's the thing: is like maybe what's embarrassing because like, dude, you wrote an embarrassing record. You wrote a whole record that sucks, and this is after your other records were like iffy. The last like 2, like, God, like it hurts because you're like, these bands are good. Like, just get someone in there who is under the age of 38. Get anyone in there. It doesn't matter the age. Get someone in there with ideas and taste and a vision and maybe something to prove. Maybe that's an element. Maybe the secret is you get the young artists to collab with the old ones. Maybe when Ozzy left Sabbath and was doing his solo career, the fact that he had Randy Rhoads and eventually Zakk Wylde, people who kind of had something to prove because they're still coming up and didn't feel jaded yet, that's what refreshed him, and that's what injected the new ideas, and then he caught up to that. Maybe that's why friggin' what? No More Tears? What's No More Tears? When year did that? No More Tears, Ozzy. Bum bow bum bow bow bum bow bum bow bow bum bow bow. A crack in the light in the window is a crack in the sky. Wow. And let's see, when did Ozzy Osbourne, let's see, leave Black Sabbath? Let's see. He was fired in 1979. Look at that. So this is a good example. Here's my new thesis, is that this is what bands should do. So I'll make that the topic of the new Abnormal review. Anyways, go check out the Come Down Machine review. Very fun. Very good. You have 5 seconds to go do it. Go do it now. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Are you there? Are you there? I'll see you there. Okay? Rock on.